This article came out from Chris Manix and Sports Illustrated after a sit down with the Milwaukee Bucks' Damian Lillard and his transition to Milwaukee after, 10 plus years in Portland, Oregon, obviously being traded September 29th, going into this season right before training camp is set to get underway for the 2023-2024 NBA season, being paired with Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, and a new head coach in Adrian Griffin to start things off, and just how different things were going to be. And it's interesting kind of taking a look at this. Anytime we see big star trades, whether it's the Heatles, whether it's Kevin Durant going to OKC, there's always this thought process of things working instantly. And I bring up the Kevin Durant one because it's different than the Heatles, because the Heatles come together and it takes a couple of years. Kevin Durant and Kyrie and James Harden, it was a disaster because it never really came together. Kevin Durant joined an established core of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Steve Kerr. The pecking order was known. It was established. And then everybody kind of deferred to prime KD. Going to Milwaukee with a first-time head coach and a new staff while trying to integrate with Giannis Antetokounmpo at the peak of his powers is not proving difficult, but it is more difficult than I think both sides imagined it was going to be.
I mean, you're moving to the middle of the country where it's cold, nothing really going on. Your family's not there with you. You've now changed head coaches in the middle of the season. That's about as much tumultuous happenings in your life on top of the divorce that he's going through. I mean, personal stuff aside, just trying to move and deal with living in one spot while your kids are in another, have something going on where you're literally traveling around so you don't really feel like you're ever at home in Milwaukee to begin with, probably. I mean, I read some quotes from that. Dude literally goes home to watch YouTube at night. He watches boxing clips on YouTube and then goes back to practice because he is so lonely. I feel terrible for Damian Lillard.
And that's the thing is that, without getting into the personal stuff of the part of this, is that he is away from his kids now.
Yeah.
And I know directly that it is bothering him. It has been problematic for him. It has been something that has eaten him up. This is a guy that, he's kind of fueled by his family and his kids, and he's in a big house in Milwaukee.
He brought everybody to Portland with him originally. I mean, it's obvious
his mom,
he's a good
his brother,
guy.
his cousins, everybody's around. Talking to him over the years, that it was always loud when we were on the phone because there was always people in the background.
A lot of love, and that's good. And he's missing that, obviously.
And that's the thing is he's in a big house. He's took over the house of a former player with him and a cousin who's there occasionally, and that's about it. Yeah. That's a stark difference.
Then in the winter, in the snow, you literally can't leave your house in Milwaukee unless you've got a snowplow, pretty much. You got to go Jeremy Renner status and not run over yourself to get somewhere.
It's an interesting proposition of where he's at right now. And I always try to humanize even the multi-million-dollar athletes like Damian Lillard, who's worth probably more than $500 million.
Yeah.
Because there's no amount of money that fixes that.
No.
There's no amount of money that fills that hole, that fills that empty space, that helps that loneliness. It's just the old adage of money doesn't solve everything. It's true. And while it does make your life easier, it brings its own burdens along with it.
Money always, just because you don't have problems revolving around money, you still have other problems in your life. Two things can be true. You can be rich and still have issues going on in your life.
So there's the family portion or the lack thereof for Dame out in Milwaukee is problematic for him. And I think that fed into, I very much believe that it fed into his slower start and how he's kind of played this season. That's been a big adjustment, but also a first-time coach and a new staff that they didn't know what they were doing, and they had to kind of feel things out and understand and work through things. And I heard through the entire process that Adrian Griffin was gonna get fired.
Yeah,
he just wasn't gonna last. I think I said around Thanksgiving, if this lasts beyond Christmas, I'll be shocked. He lasted a little bit longer, but eventually he was on the way out.
Well, just imagine, too, you go to a new place with a guy in Terry Stotts, a familiar voice that you worked with basically your whole career that got you there. And then what? Not even 2 weeks into training camp, he quits. So very abruptly, that kind of good feeling that you thought you had in Milwaukee just goes away. So even to begin with, it's just a tumultuous start from Portland to Milwaukee. Trying to transition didn't obviously go so well for him. So you just look at not only off the court stuff, but on the court and the problems within the Milwaukee Bucks locker room. I mean, they're still having issues winning right now. And when you ain't winning, it's not fun. And then you go home to an empty house, you think about not winning even more, I would assume.
Well, and that just goes to show you exactly how probably, I don't want to say toxic the locker room was or the culture around there, but something was obviously seriously wrong, because with Damian Lillard just coming in, that had to weigh heavily on Terry Stotts before he decided to be like, you know what, I'm out. I can't do this. You know what I mean? I would think that
yes, they still have a very
probably
good
made it a
relationship.
tougher decision for him than it would have been if Damian Lillard were not.
If Dame's not there, for sure. Yeah, and I think that's part of it. It's clearly, that was a not, if not one, 17 red flags for Adrian Griffin to start, that a beloved coach and relationship with Damian Lillard was foiled in the first 2 weeks. That's it's not great, Bob.
Right. Well, and especially especially when it's a first-time head coach and you've got a guy who's been in the game as long as Terry Stotts.
A literal title-winning head coach.
Do not yell at that man. Let him finish the conversation about his best. Like, he knows offense. He helped the Mavericks win a championship. Maybe let him coach Giannis before he comes over to the huddle.
Yeah, it's so.
Or maybe let him coach the guy that he coached for a decade, basically, to help fit him into the system there.
Pipe down, Adrian Griffin. Let the guy that you hired do his job. That would have been probably, to be honest, a career saver had he leaned on Terry Stotts more.
That's what I thought he was brought in to do. Was to lean on his knowledge.
But also, first-time head coaches, they have, and rightfully so, a fear that a veteran coach behind them is the dude who's going to replace them as soon as they get fired.
Some guys end up like Doc Rivers, and some guys end up like Earl Watson. It's just the way that it goes. Are you smart enough to not only know how the game is played, but to coach your guys correctly? You're coaching men here, and then all your other assistant coaches, some of them are already head coaches, and obviously we know Griffin could not handle that dynamic for a week.
Well, and the thing, and first-time coaches and, younger head coaches and whatnot, they know most of the time they need somebody with experience behind them to help them run things and keep things together and be a glue guy. And so, to me, it was always just, I found it weird that Stotts bounced so quickly. Something was seriously wrong there.
And that's the thing is that, the Manix asked Damian Lillard about that. Terry Stotts' exit in the preseason shocked everybody. He played 9 years for him. How did that affect you? Dame goes on to say, I think when Terry left, that part of it, the familiarity of what we were doing, it kind of left with him. Now I'm like, okay, what's this play? I was kind of in the figuring it out stage. So when you really don't know stuff like the back of your hand, it's hard to direct traffic and tell people, I want you right here or there. Point guards, especially veteran point guards, we play the game differently than a young, talented point guard. We are just manipulating everything. It's hard to do for a team and yourself when you're just trying to learn. And he's highlighting some very important things is that I talked about this, I want to say about last week or 2 weeks ago. It's a very subtle but very simple thing. Damian Lillard likes to come down the floor on the right-hand side. Giannis Antetokounmpo likes to come down the floor on the right-hand side. Figuring out who's going to trigger the offense and be on that side of the floor, that takes time. I've talked to veteran players and asked, how long it takes for you to kind of feel this stuff out. And while some people are like, that should only take a couple days, couple games, couple weeks, couple months. Years is the answer that I've received. Over and over and over again to get the intrinsic feel. And Manix asked Damian Lillard about kind of what his anticipation was when he got traded there. He said, I thought we would be kind of like where the Celtics are right now. In that they had the established core, but the pecking order didn't need to be figured out. Like bringing in Kristaps Porzingis, like he's not going to be above Tatum. No, everybody knows that because of Tatum's two-way play. Some nights Kristaps will be above Jalen, some nights he won't, but it's an easier fit. Giannis, I think, is at the point of like wanting to show that he's got a bag still. I'm much more than modern era Shaq. And I think that has kind of played into some hesitancy from Giannis. And from what I understand, Dame has kind of stepped back and like let Giannis be Giannis. But there's been a full court press from the press in interviewing both Dame and Giannis about how both are saying Dame needs to do more. Dame needs to take over. Dame time needs to be the fourth quarter. He is brought in to be the offensive guy.
Yeah.
Giannis, as great as he is, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer already. He's MVP, Finals MVP, title winner. He's going to go down as a top 15 player of all time. He's going to go down ahead of Damian Lillard. That's unquestioned. But the one quote-unquote weakness is where and how effective he can be in the half court throughout the regular season and in the playoffs. That's where Damian Lillard shines. So getting that integration and figuring that part of it out, that is the thing that has caused, I don't want to say consternation, but they haven't been seamless or as seamless as you would think they would be. And I don't think it's because of anything inherently bad, but you do have two first ballot Hall of Famers that it's not ego, but it's trying not to supplant somebody and trying to fit in a way that makes sense that you can't just force to work.
Well, also, you get down to that offensive side of the ball for Milwaukee, and Damian Lillard, new point guard for them, he's one of the best pick-and-roll point guards of all time, right? You could tell that as soon as he got to Milwaukee, trying to get that worked with Brook Lopez and Giannis, doing a pick and roll after working with LaMarcus his first couple of years, and then basically settling in with Nurkic. I mean, Dame really hasn't had to learn many other play styles or try to learn the pick and roll with any other players. This is the first time in his career, really, that he's doing so. And when Nurkic got traded from the Nuggets, it seemed within 5 games they were seamless. I don't know if it was just Nurkic like buying into what Dame does, and you're kind of talking about, well, Giannis, you know, he's a top 15 of all-time player, Hall of Famer. He's going to go above Dame. So no, he's not really just going to fall into what Dame wants to do. And Brook Lopez certainly isn't either, because he's a much higher paid center in the NBA, been around a bit longer than Yusuf. So yeah, these guys implementing into Dame's play style, it just, even now with 24 games left in the season, I don't think they could run the pick and roll like Dame could in Portland.
No, and that's the thing, is there's an understanding, and Dame highlights that as well. He discusses how, you know, if the early stages of Jokic and Nurkic with Jamal Murray, like trying to figure things out there and how those things worked, and developing it where they are now, they don't even have to think. It's just all based on feel.
Just there, yeah.
Dame and LaMarcus, over 3 years, they basically ran the same play, and it wasn't, I keep saying play. They ran the same action, and it's not a play. They're not trying to get this exact thing. They're saying, we know what we can do, and we have a counter to your counter to your counter to your counter.
It was one of the best two-man games at the time in the NBA.
And that's the thing, is like, but they knew, okay, if I set the screen here and they trap, I know I'll hit you here. Or if they're gonna come at this angle, I'm gonna escape to the right this way, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw a rat pass to you here. If they drop, I'm gonna hit you here. If both play under, which dumb, I'm gonna pull for 3. Like they didn't. There was no talking it through. It's a symbiotic relationship. Everybody's on the same page, and that's why I'm saying it takes years to have that fundamental understanding. And I truly believe that this is the best pick and roll pairing in the NBA. It's the best 1-2 pairing. Jokic is the better player than Giannis. Dame is the better player than Jamal Murray. So I think that the distance between the two, I lean towards the Giannis Dame pairing. But where Jokic and Murray have the upper hand is in that experience, in that feel, in that intuition. So it's gonna be interesting to see just how far they can take that relationship as they get ready for the playoffs.
Not only that, but you bring up the connection between Murray and Jokic. The willingness by Jokic to just pass the ball first. He doesn't have to shoot. You're just talking about Giannis. Like, no, he needs the ball. So Jokic is much more willing to give it up to Murray, and that, I think, makes it much more of a relationship comparable to what Dame and Yusuf or Dame and LA had.
It's going to be really interesting. Again, I don't want to go through the entire article because it's a lot, but again, Chris Manix of Sports Illustrated sat down with Damian Lillard, and they dive into a ton. It's a couple thousand words for you to dive into to kind of get an understanding of where Dame's at, where the Bucks are at, and Dame's and Giannis' relationship on and off the floor. I will just say, as a side note, and anecdotally, Dame and Giannis have wanted to play with each other for years. Like Dame told me, 5-6 years ago, when I asked him, just shooting it back and forth, like, who's the guy that you want to play with? It was always Giannis. And he goes, we talk. The
conversation's going.
There was always like some, like, I'm trying to get him here. I've tried to get him here. I want him to come here. Like, so that I don't think it's a personal thing. I think stylistically, it's just trying to find those right levers, and you're gonna run into walls. I'm still going to put my money on that.